Hey, everybody, we're excited to get started here in just a minute. So welcome. We'll give everybody just a couple more minutes to get connected, but thanks so much for being with us. You guys seeing the title slide there now?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, while we're waiting, we want to find out who's suffering from the heat wave versus the cold snap. So if you're having record high temperatures or record cold temperatures, let's see it in the chat. Because I've heard both. Like out west, it's like got really cold, and the southeast is like boiling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we went from, I was in Utah visiting one of our clients out there, and it was like 100 degrees. Came home, it was 100 degrees, and then yesterday morning it was suddenly like 65, and I was
Really?
so
Wow.
happy in Denver. So it almost felt like Europe. It was very like misty and cold and very different. So I think all my plants were like, oh, I might live.
Yeah, Atlanta's been really hot the last few days, but I think it's supposed to ease off finally.
We got to get back to our humid selves, Greg.
Yeah, that's right.
God forbid.
And we should have done a drawing for the person with the hottest temperature, but the Arizona people always win that. So it's like
It's good to see some friendly faces in the attendees. Thanks everybody for joining.
yeah, Barrett, we should do a drawing to see how many people can spell internal properly. That would be a good one. Without looking, right?
Back in 2018, somebody bought the E in Internal. So they never built anything, but they just bought the trademark.
Oh man, I hope you've got a little back order monitor on that just in case they ever let it slip away. So you can, okay.
It would just confuse everybody now.
Yeah. It's really hard to find good names, right? I mean, when you're trying to figure things out, I think you did a great job with the name. So
well, that's a good icebreaker on Blue Tangerine.
Yeah. So I don't know why people don't know what a blue tangerine is. I think aren't they ubiquitous everywhere? So
Is there a good story behind the name?
Not as good as we wish there was.
Okay.
One day, Greg dropped his lunch in a paint bucket. Like, oh, it's like, no, it just comes down to trying to find names that aren't taken, right? And you have to put two words together that just either aren't spelled right or don't belong. That's what you
Ain't that the truth?
Pre-chat GPT, right?
Yeah.
50 company names.
All right. Well, we are officially over starting time. So I want to respect everybody who has decided to join us on time. We really appreciate it. And we're going to dive in. My name is Greg Bray, and I am the president of Blue Tangerine, and I'm going to be your host today. And really excited to welcome you to today's webinar, where we're going to be talking about how you can leverage self-tours in order to generate more leads. And so this is aimed at those of you who are selling new homes. But I think there might be some things in here for those who might even be in the resale market, if there's a few of those slipping in as well. But before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you're not familiar with Zoom, I don't know who doesn't know Zoom anymore. Like, we're all experts in Zoom now, but we do want to invite you to submit questions as we go. So there's a Q&A panel and the chat box. So if you want to have some questions that we'll get to a little bit later, please drop those in as we go, and I'll be monitoring that and find the right time to get those so that our panelists can address those. We also are recording today's presentation, so we will be sharing that later. So if for some reason you can't stay the whole time, you'll be able to get a copy of that as well. So to start, we want to kind of introduce who we've got, because we've got a big group of folks who have a lot to offer today. And I'm really excited to listen to what they've prepared. Our first speaker is going to be Barrett Davis. Barrett is the CEO of InterNow, and they're a pioneering tech company, if you haven't heard of them, that are aimed at revolutionizing self-guided tours. And as a young entrepreneur, Barrett's been dedicated to transforming real estate through innovative, hardware-driven solutions, and they promise to forever change the way business is conducted. And Barrett was recognized last year by Professional Builder Magazine as one of their 40 under 40 award recipients. So congrats for that as well to Barrett. Also joining us, we have Jennifer Cooper. Jennifer's with Evolution Marketing, and she's got over 20 years of hands-on marketing and client service experience in a variety of industries. She's results-oriented, creative, and analytical, and she is an executive marketing professional, consultant, and a CMO coach. She's worked for Fortune 500 companies, as well as many multifamily, national, regional, and local builders. A lot of different builders in that list there, Jennifer. So we're excited to have Jennifer joining us as well. Then we have Shelley McCurdy. Shelley is the Director of Marketing at CB Jenny, Normandy, and Southgate Homes, which are 3 of the home building brands for Green Brick Partners. And Green Brick is the 3rd largest and fastest growing home builder in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shelley has the privilege of leading marketing for several, has had the privilege. She can't do it all at once. Some's before, some's now. So she's had the privilege of leading marketing for several world-class organizations such as Pulte Group, First Service Residential, and KPMG. Excuse me. And then last but not least, we have Corey Dotson. Corey is the Senior Director of Development Operations at Blue Tangerine. And he started right out of school at Blue Tangerine at age 19, and he's grown up with the industry and at the company. And 17 years and hundreds of home builder websites later, he leads the team of website developers and designers that pride themselves on the ability to architect unique websites with the structural ability to manage data and generate sales. And just like Barrett, Corey was also recognized last year by Professional Builder Magazine as part of the 2023 class for the 40 under 40 recognition. So we've got an amazing group here. My only disappointment and concern is that we can't go for multiple hours with all these folks, because everybody could do, a whole hour or more all on their own. So what we're going to do today is we're going to give each member of our panel a few minutes to share some of their thoughts around self-tours and some of the things that they've learned and prepared for. And then after we go through that, we're going to switch over to some Q&A time, and I'll help facilitate that, where we can dig in a little deeper and see what kinds of ways that we can help you, because at the end of the day, we're here for you as our attendees and audience. So we're going to start off with Barrett, giving us kind of the introduction to self-tours. So Barrett, if you want to take over the slides there and dive in, we'll see what happens next, everybody.
All right. I think I got everything set up here. So, I'm Barrett Davis, CEO of InterNow, as we talked about. So a little bit of my little panelist portion is just some of the basics and some of the more advanced parts of self-guided tours that are coming out. So just starting with the absolute rudimentary, what is a self-guided tour? A home shopper can schedule a tour or find a property in person. So they're driving through the community, they see your self-guided tour signs. They'll scan a QR code, then the home shopper will verify their identity, and we'll capture their first name, last name, email, and phone number. And then we'll capture that profile and run a background check on them. They'll also fill out a custom survey, which is a new feature we rolled out this year if you haven't started using those. And then they'll get a one-time use code to go into the property. We keep track of how long they're in the home. We encourage them to reach out to the sales team for questions. And we also send a lead alert then to the sales and marketing teams that are managing those homes. And we can also sync that to our CRM. All right. So for self-guided tour implementations from an InterNow standpoint, we're seeing a huge rise of model homes onto our platform. InterNow has done 1 million tours. We've been around since 2018, and we still have zero theft, zero issues, zero incidents in any model or furnished home or in any spec home to date. Model homes are great for what we call smart tours, because a lot of them use alarm.com, and we can actually turn on the AC, we can turn on the lights as they leave, we can rearm the alarm, we can lock the door. There's a lot of things for a smart tour, which allows us to integrate to the smart home technology. Our bread and butter is spec homes, traditionally unstaffed. It's definitely the homes that from our platform's analytics that they want to see They'll drive by the model. They'll try to go to the home that they can buy. That's the one that they are going to move into most of the time. And so the spec homes definitely drive majority of our multiple tours. One thing that is very fast growing in our sort of network of different builders is that they're starting to put up these sort of realtor experiences. So this is an example of like a realtor post in one of our Enter Now key boxes. They actually, your other Enter Now homes can allow in third-party realtors, but they're actually creating sort of like a white glove experience for realtors in the community and marketing like, hey, we have this great self-guided tour experience just for you. It's on this key box. Just go use the key anytime, whether our staff's there or not, to allow in your third-party buyers. So we're starting to see a big rise in that throughout the Midwest into Southern California. It's something that sort of creatively sparked in the community this year that's really growing. Just for people's knowledge, Enter Now is starting to get deployed on many different things outside of just like traditional homes, which is really cool. One of them is actually, we're on several 3D printed homes now through some of the large builder programs that are 3D printing some of their homes. So just to give you an example, they're completely unmanned, they're printed, they're managed and sold by Enter Now. Definitely one of a new frontier for us. We've also expanded into RV parks and manufactured homes. Never in my years when I built Enter Now thought that would be the best use case for it, but we're seeing a growing need over there as well. And then more and more of our regional or larger builders are starting doing build to rent, or they have a rental portfolio. So Enter Now has the capabilities of managing for sale homes and self-guided tours for rent as well, even into as the residents actually staying there and paying rent. All right. So one of the other parts of Enter Now that is rapidly growing is sort of our integrated web experiences. So we found that when Enter Now is integrated into your website, and a lot of our home builders are designing sort of like dedicated pages to self-guided tours. So this is an example for CBH in their Platinum sort of Tour Now product. But it will show all the homes on a map. A home shopper can easily schedule a tour. And we've seen this to drive like 2 to 3 to majority of their traffic for CBH. So if you definitely highlight this type of page and you drive advertisements to it, it can generate a lot of foot traffic, and we see a lot of success with it. From an Enter Now standpoint, we have a sort of an omni-channel tour experience. Majority of our tours still take place on demand, people driving through, so they're touring sort of on site or on demand. We still encourage all of our builders to use their own self-guided tour sort of brand or product. So shout out to New Traditions. They have something called Open House that they branded and sort of market themselves. Something that is our most sort of innovative part of Enter Now that's coming out this year is our ILS listing services. So any homes that Enter Now manages will sync up to all the listing services throughout the years here, Realtor.com, Zillow, and we already have New Home Source that's done today. All right. So Enter Now, once you have sort of keyless access and remote access to your homes, our technology is being used primarily for sales and marketing use cases, but it's starting to expand across department rapidly over the past few years. We have a lot of traffic in construction now where Enter Now is active as soon as the door's on, as soon as the appliances are in. And it's just using keyless access and audit trails to track the trades, to track the cleaners, to get the home ready before it's sold. Once the home is sold, now we have some integrations for like digital closing and to be able to deliver like a code to somebody who's moving in. So just to give you an example, some of our builders are selling their homes with buy now products, reserve now products online, where the home shopper hasn't even seen their house. They're just buying a templated house online. And through the self-guided tour system, we're actually delivering them a code to help move in as well. And again, to the build to rent, our platform is also managing the full life cycle. So if that home doesn't sell, let's just say your home builder decides to make it for rent, we can even manage it for a resident as well. And then as it comes up for lease, it could go back to sale or serially back for lease again. So we've built all those different features into our platform this year to really cover all aspects of home building or home selling and renting. All right. The scope of our integrations is ever growing. Self-guided tours is being embedded into almost every partner or type of platform in the home builder or home buyer discovery chain. So it's being built into builder websites on the discovery part of the funnel. From like a researching standpoint, We work with Focus 360, Inugo, Outhouse to embed our self-tour buttons into their interactive floor plans, into virtual tours, into community sitemaps. The main idea is that wherever the buyer's eyes are in the virtual digital world, we've got to get them to go see the home that they can buy. So they do all these designings, they love what they see, they love your home building product, but let's get them into the home so they can have that emotional experience in person. We've talked about the Zillow integrations as well. We're integrating now with some of the sales kiosks with Inugo and Focus 360, into the chatbots with Atlas, into Novi Home for more communication, and then all to some of the newer types of solutions in digital closing like Foundation and Novi Home as well. So even for as the home sells into the closing part of it, it's becoming a digital experience as well. All right, and to sort of wrap up my sort of basics is just talking about the ROI again. We did about 1 million tours last year. About 28% of our tours happened outside of traditional staffed hours, 10 to 6 roughly. Even during the summer here, we're seeing a huge uptick in people trying to tour after 8:30, after 9. These are legitimate buyers. I don't know what's going on in the summer. People are having a good time after dinner and then they want to go see homes, but we're seeing a huge uptick in our platform. So just as a reminder, try to increase your tour coverage in the summer if you can, with security in mind. But just as a heads up, we're seeing a lot of after-hour tours right now. And again, EnterNow is one of the best solutions for sort of ROI for doing more with less, trying to cover more homes, being always open, always selling. So that's sort of a wrap up on self-guided tours. And so I'll pass the microphone back to Greg here.
So, well, thanks, Barrett. And that's a great intro. I love the fact that you're over 1 million. It seems like a magic number, right? To be able to say that. So, all right. Now we're gonna hand over here and have Jennifer share some of her experiences with tours and where they fit in the marketing world.
Yeah, this is a fun topic. So I'm really going to look at it from a marketing leadership perspective and how do we get buy-in and kind of the why behind the mechanics of what a self-touring platform does. So let's start out with saying, who likes self-touring? Great question. We have a mixture of people out there. You'll have the looky-loos. We get those anyways from paid traffic, from any of our marketing traffic, people that just want to simply stop in and see. We're also going to have the home seekers. That's what we want. And we're really looking for what percentage are going to be ready, willing, and able to buy. And through the self-touring, through my experiences, we've seen anywhere from maybe as low as 10% up to 20% are really ready, willing, and able to buy. But again, they may be on a long journey. Maybe they know they're going to move in the next year. Let them self-tour as they want. Maybe they started out as a looky-loo and they move into that buyer. But really, we are going to get those home seekers coming through, not just looky-loos. And then we have our newer home buyers, those that may have just gone under contract. So again, from a sales and marketing perspective, we know that people like to go back and get inspired by the model home, for example. How did they decorate it? How did they use that space? They go back to the product that sold them to try to get more ideas. So it's never hurts to have that mixture of traffic, but to know you have that mixture of traffic coming into your home. And then from a sales and marketing, why sales? Why does sales like self-touring? They're always thinking about what's in it for me, right? They need to make sure that they're being successful. So they like self-touring from, how do you warm up prospects on a, oops, sorry, dog decided to come in. They like to have the prospects to warm up on a closed day, on a holiday. This little chart over to the right here is just a snippet from one of my clients that in some markets, they're closed on Sundays. So you see a significant amount of traffic. They need something like self-touring, especially closed, but they regardless also see an uptick on weekends. Not surprising, people have more time. So it's really important to know how can we be available even if we're closed. Helps show model, even if I've got a doctor's appointment where I don't have a model sitter for that day. It's also going to give me another activity marker for engagement in all of my statistics. How can I see in the customer journey where people are starting to engage, even though maybe they haven't had an appointment? If we get them in the CRM and we see that engagement, it's great for us to look from a data perspective. And it also helps me from a sales perspective, get my OSCs to secure that appointment for me. That's why they're there. So we get a sense of who the real deal customers are and who's actually going to be touring with us. All right, so one of the things I preach, if you've heard me on stage at all in the last couple of years, is the customer of all things. So we're thinking about how do we catch the wave of self-service. And I really think our industry holistically is they're perking up their ears more to how do we implement technology and kind of get out of the old ways of doing things. So customer of all things, think about it, all these graphics across the bottom. Tesla. I hear a lot of home builders saying, I want to be the Tesla. Do they know how to be the Tesla? This is one of those ways. This is giving them self-service, giving the customer what they're expecting. Think about how much more we order food. We don't go into restaurants as much. All of our traffic can, or all of our travel can be ordered online. More of our doctor services we can be doing online. So we want to be thinking, how do we give the buyer opportunity to go online, schedule that tour, and then drive that self-service experience? Personally, I always throw in when I buy a vehicle looking for my teenage daughter right now, I don't want to talk to a salesperson until I'm ready. So I'm going to be looking after hours, getting on that lot, trying to wish I could test drive, but I can't without their help. But I am one of those self-service buyers, and as is many of the customers out there. So think about how home building can move. Self-service, self-touring is definitely there. Right. So how do you really plan for proper implementation? The biggest thing is I've seen across touring platforms where it comes down to how did we implement? How did we get everybody to buy in? So I always say, regardless of what it is that you're implementing from a marketing perspective, if you're the director or the vice president or someone that's leading the marketing, you have to define the why for implementation. Why do we need it? Get the buy-in and know what are you trying to get it to move in your organization, and write that business case for anything and set those goals on how you can measure it. So are we simply wanting to offer another way for our customers to touch our product along the journey? Do we have a metric? Even if you don't know what that metric is, state that. State, well, we'd like to get 10% more traffic, or we'd like to get 20%, or we'd like to capture 25% more appointments. Start with something so that you can hold it accountable, and then try to see where do you think in your market. You're going to notice while self-touring that depending on how dense your market is, how many other models and other competition drives more traffic, that you'll see a difference in use of the self-touring tool just by other factors that are outside of your control. But create those goals. I don't see enough goal setting to know if something's working. To train your team and plan for the what ifs, proactive versus reactive. What if the walk doesn't work? Is there a backup number? Or what if someone's in the model and they've got a question? Are we prompting the buyer in the home when they're alone to reconnect with us, to get a question answered? Do we have a texting platform? There's a lot of things to think of the what ifs. If I was on this journey as a buyer and I had a question, I had a need, I got stuck, did I feel that the home builder was really there for me? So think about all those things, because even with the best technology, there will be occasionally something that doesn't work. So we, as the marketing team, have to think about that ahead of time and test it. I see too much reactive happening, which then really cannibalizes all the effort you did to implement. Think of all the ways that self-touring can impact the customer's path and journey, which I'm going to actually show you a slide for that in a minute. And then thinking about your integrations into your other assets. So Barrett's slide that he just showed us a few minutes ago shows us a vast array of opportunities to think about how we can be plugging into all of the marketing technology that we have out there. Next slide. All right. So you've followed me on any other discussions or presentations. I keep building on this slide. I love this slide. So in a nutshell, the customer path is not any one funnel. We've had a lot of conversations holistically as an industry about the funnel is not traditional anymore. I like to think about that we're attracting and we're connecting and we're educating the customer. We're trying to create a path, but the customer is going to come in wherever they want. So I kind of think of it as a fly in a shoebox, and you could kind of shake it up and they're all over in there because they are really driving where they want to fly in the journey. So, but we have to be aware of where we're connecting them. And it's everything from AI that's out there to everybody on our team. We've got sales and construction and administration and closing and marketing. We're all, and OSCs are all trying to touch this customer along this point. And they may come in and out of various ways where they're having emotion and experience with us. So to really harness the slide. This is the screenshot slide. This is where marketers need to be thinking that there is no one way that we're getting people in and out of our spectrum. And so self-touring is another way that kind of ties everything in here. I may be attracted to your brand, stop and self-tour, or I may get a certain way down the line and I see a self-touring sign and I come in. It gives you some consistency to connect with the customer and warm up the customer when they want to be, just because they don't want to make the phone call or they don't want to fill out the form fill. It's kind of that's why I kind of put it in the bottom. I think it just gives more opportunity for the customer to connect with us amongst the entire huge non-funnel funnel, if you want to call it, in their journey. So really being cognizant of all the ways I'm giving customer choice. This is the big choice slide. Okay, next slide. And so pitfalls, definitely want to talk about those. So when I've seen poor implementation, this is what we don't want. This is what Barrett doesn't want to hear, right? Like from holistically, any self-touring options out there, they want to hear success. So how do we avoid the pitfalls? So the biggest thing is OSCs and sales teams where I've seen won't be communicating. They're not understanding how they're going to manage their lead activity through the system. When is the handoff? Did you follow up with them? Do I follow up with them? Making sure they have their processes in place, which really goes down to not correctly setting up your CRM to track the stage of the prospect and the activity of self-touring. So making sure you know, whether you're creating deal stages or specific steps, there's a lot of different language out there depending on which CRM you're in, but that is very critical to driving success and not just having people touring and they're not being followed up. So not properly nurturing the client with instant texting. This is a big thing, whether you use something like Atlas RTX, there's a lot of different products out there that connect into CRMs as well. How are you nurturing that relationship after they've walked in the door? You want to make sure that you're either there for those questions, again, having some of those sign props in your model, or making sure they're putting on an instant nurturing campaign through your CRM so that we're not just abandoning this. It's not a set it and forget it. We've got to think about the after. That's when we really can capture the opportunity to move that conversion metric. Thinking about technology not tested, if people aren't trained or if it's not understood, I've seen horrible pitfalls where it's just everybody's not quite understanding how to use the product. And this isn't just self-touring products, this is across the board. So I'm just saying this holistically, not tested, not trained, or not understood is always a pitfall. And then not marketing the use of the tool. So creating like a tour on your time campaign. I think what CVH is doing is fantastic. They have a very different model holistically though than most home builders across the board in terms of how they sell. So if you go out there and you admire what another builder is doing, understand their selling philosophy and their value proposition, because it is a little different for each builder. So how they implement it and how they market it, builder by builder, will depend on how they're structured on the back end and the front end. So it's great to admire, but understand their why before maybe you implement some of those things. I can say that having worked with a lot of builders, I see different implementations. Next slide. And then what works, because we don't want to talk about what doesn't work. Proper integration into your website. So these would be more of your kind of rules of things that you want to do. Make sure you think about your driving and putting the right call outs and CDAs and right buttons and things for InterNow or whatever self-touring platform that you might use into the website so that people are seeing it in the navigation, in the footer, buy a model home, buy a spec home. Think about where they're going to be prompted for that. Think about a marketing campaign for something like Tour on Your Time. This is something that Visionary Homes does. And how can you create a fun, cheeky way to put out that you can tour on your time? Doing display ads that feature that tour now, clock icons, thinking about the psychology of the messaging. Time is valuable, my time, my dime. Those types of things can really be catchy in a display format and drive people straight to the home and straight to that tour button. To watch the data, again, discuss and understand how self-touring is growing in momentum. It is absolutely growing. I'm seeing more and more builders want to implement it and want to understand how to use it. And then I would say, why just use it for models or why just use it for specs? Use it for both. I have spec inventory across my builders. I want to get people in those homes. But then you have to bring in your IT team. So they need to understand how easy it is to implement this technology and why it's so important for your bottom line to drive this traffic. So bring them into the conversation. And maybe if you've got 50 specs, you can't put it on 50 specs, but you can put it on 20 specs. This will really drive your engagement and more opportunity when you run those campaigns holistically. Here's just one more example. Again, I'm highlighting Visionary Homes. They will put out the A-frames in front of their sales office, so when it's closed, or even when it's not, someone's starting to get that brand recognition of they have this self-guided home tour thing. So I'm actually working with them right now from moving from the philosophy of just models to moving to specs. So we're already training the realtor audience that we have this option. So once we go broader to specs, we'll have a new message. And then they created a great soft and light video commercial that we can also put on YouTube that talks about that, and you have a lot of ways to use that spoke in the wheel. And then last but not least, think about your integrations. Again, this is an example with Focus 360 about integrating into their next platform, their sales kiosk, where you can go to the interactive floor plan, you can look at the home, you can look at the lot, and you can go ahead and be connected to Enter Now right away. That's working smarter, not harder. So any of the applications that you're working with, see if there's an integration available. We as marketers have to manage 8, 9, 10 things, as Shelley knows. And more service providers like Enter Now are working to create those integrations. So let's use them.
Thanks, Jennifer. A lot of great insights there. Appreciate it. And certainly going to dive into a few questions here in a few minutes. But next, we want to hear from Shelley and learn a little bit more about some of her experiences with the tool.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm excited to talk about this great application and how it's really helped us in our business. So just a little bit about CBJNE. I know Greg did a nice intro, but we are just a spec builder for our townhome product. So we build about 1,000 units a year. We have a variety of product and 3 brands that we build under: a luxury brand, a move-up product, and a townhome product. We use self-touring for all of those products in different ways. So for a little bit of a case study, I'll start with CBJNE, which is our townhome product. But that product is typically a first-time home buyer and a renter. So when they're looking to move, they want to move quickly. They're definitely, we have a nice demographic and range in our demographics for CBJNE, but primarily a younger buyer, a Gen Z millennial buyer. And, they definitely want to do things on their own terms. They want to be able to tour when they do what they want, when they want. So self-touring has been a great means to kind of accommodate that from a customer perspective. So I'll just set a kind of a scenario for you of, how we got into this, just to kind of set the stage. But imagine that it's late afternoon from a sales perspective, and you're sitting in the sales office, right? And the market has been a little slow, right? Interest rates have been a little high, and it's been a little slow. Your foot traffic has definitely dropped a bit, and qualified leads have been really tough. Maybe you get a phone call. It's a salesperson from a current buyer under contract, and you've got to talk to them and work through some things with that buyer. And then you notice out your window that a potential buyer is coming down the street, and they stopped at one of your inventory homes, and you're like, oh gosh, I forgot to unlock that before I came into the sales office this morning. I got really busy and the door's locked and they can't get in, and you see them look through the window, but you've got to focus on your current customer on the phone. So chances are they're probably going to look in the window and then they're going to leave. You get off the phone, you realize that's exactly what happened. They left, and you're like, oh man, I really needed some traffic and I missed this opportunity. So, that was similar to what our scenario was when we first started with Enter Now, probably about 5 years ago. Ironically, it was before COVID. And that's a whole nother piece of this story. But, we definitely began to implement, I think, Enter Now even more during COVID, because as you know, no one wanted to talk to anybody or see anybody or touch anybody or be within 6 feet of anybody. So it was a great way to continue to sell our product and have our models open and leverage, that ability for customers to still come in and consider home buying. And then, so that was a great way, but we really needed a way overall when we started with the product to increase sales and improve our lead to sales conversions. So, I would say that our division president as a whole has always been very progressive and wanting to be an early adopter of technology, which is a great blessing. I know sometimes in home building we can be a little bit slow to take off with certain things. But we've definitely been an early adopter of technology when we can. And so we were trying to look at it from both sides, from the customer side and from the sales side. And I think that's where we saw the opportunities, right? Is that we knew we had a large number of inventory, the market was slowing. How do we get more buyers in? So self-touring really allowed us to put those locks on our inventory homes and let the customer tour it when they want to. We were still able to capture that data. And as Jennifer mentioned, there's lots of ways to follow up on that and things that are critical for that process. So, we've experimented with a lot of different things. One of them is, we've implemented Atlas RTX and used that technology to follow up from a texting perspective with home buyers as they come into our Lasso CRM system. So it's kind of a seamless process. They come in, they tour our home, enter now. That is integrated into our Lasso CRM. We do use Lasso, have been currently. That triggers another activation, which also triggers our text campaign that welcomes them and introduces the brand to them. And then it enables our sales team to follow up in a really effective manner. So it's been absolutely fabulous for us. And I would say also, there's so many factors and that make self-touring great. It's also an increased safety opportunity for us because we did have some areas of town that we were building in that, our sales team really didn't feel safe in after dark, or areas that, maybe it might be better to put a self-tour on. And I think that, to Barrett's point earlier, they haven't had any safety issues. We've had zero safety issues in using this option, which I know some of my colleagues have expressed that was a concern, letting people into your homes when you're not there. But we have had zero issues on our models or our spec homes with the safety aspect of doing self-touring. It's been really fabulous. And so it's really helped in that respect as well. So, also, I just kind of wanted to say, I think going back to the buyer experience, we really want this to be an extension of our brand. And I think, a way that you can do that is positioning it for how you sell. And for CB Jenny, we position our brand as a very, stressless process. It's an easy home buying process. So nothing kind of speaks to that more than making it easy for the buyer to experience the home the way that they want to. I think, and kind of guiding them when they're ready to have that conversation to come in and talk to us. So that's been, fantastic. You can go to the next slide, Greg, if you want. So just as a kind of a testimony of what we've seen over the last 18 months, we've seen about 617 leads generated from just self-touring. And this is, just for CB Jenny. This does not include our other brands. I mean, we probably have seen double that. If we add in, I think I counted over 1,200 leads, I think looking at it last night, for between all of our brands for self-touring. CB Jenny is just the one that we've been using the longest. And, I couldn't, speak more highly of it. I think it's something that we are going to continue. I think we're always looking at ways that we can, integrate the technology into the other pieces of our business. We do promote it on our website. So if someone goes to one of our spec listings on our website and they're looking at our inventory, they can see that they can tour the home on their own and click and actually schedule that tour from our website. That has been extremely successful. And then, just using our own self-branded signs. I mean, that is showing that kind of on the screen now, but you can brand this for your company and make it feel like a really seamless part of your experience and customized. So, but that's my story, Greg. Anything
right.
else? Yeah.
Thanks, Shelley. Appreciate that. All right. And now we'll turn it over to Corey to talk a little bit more about the website and some of the things that can be done there.
Great. Is that sharing now?
Yep.
Thanks, Greg. I think it's fitting that I'm going last since we're going to talk about how we don't want to make the website an afterthought. That's what we're going to talk about. And, you know, like all of your other marketing efforts, the website really plays a vital role in the ultimate success of those efforts because, you know, the website truly is the hub where all your marketing efforts come together. And it is far too easy when making updates to the website to just throw a link on the website. It's like, oh, we got Enter Now, so we're just going to put an Enter Now link on the page and people are going to tour our homes. And that's great, but that's a pipe dream. We really want to think out better how we're going to implement changes to the website, any changes, to really unlock the full potential of self-guided tours or anything that we're doing on the website. There's a tendency that I see with builders where you spend all this time and effort and money in generating these different pieces of content for the site, virtual tours, videos, interactive pieces of content, and then they're just represented on the site by just a link. And over time, I'd like to use the term Frankensite. We see sites become kind of this just big list of a bunch of links with no real guidance. We're not guiding the user to do what we want them to do on the site or what we feel is the most effective way to get them to convert. So I think the first step of what we need to do is we have to decide and properly define what kind of element is a self-guided tour. When we're talking about implementing it into the website, what kind of element is it? Unlike virtual tours and some of the other interactive elements, I really feel like a self-guided tour is really a lead. It's a key lead capture point. Our goal is to get the home buyer, potential home buyer, into the home, to get their feet into the home. We know that the emotional connection is so important, and we try really hard on the website to create an emotional connection through the resources that we have there. But ultimately, that is accelerated as soon as they walk through the front door. So we need to make sure that that we're treating self-guided tours on the website as a key lead capture point. And the reality is, with Enter Now, 90% of those who register online for self-guided tours actually make it through the front door, which is incredible. Like the idea that 90% of those people who are registering are actually making it into your home and having that emotional connection. And those who don't show up, that other 10%, you still got the lead. It's still a lead capture point, and you have that information. You can follow up there. We have to talk about call to action, because that's really what this all boils down to is, as we're implementing this into the website, how do we call attention to it? How do we create a proper call to action? And we want to make sure that there's not too many calls to action. Again, the tendency could be every time there's something new, it's like, now this is the most important thing. This is the most important thing. But really, if everything on the site is just competing to be most important, then nothing's important. So again, we have to step back and decide, where do we want the user to go? What is the most effective way to capture that lead? And when with self-guided tours, we really want to be deliberate with the way that we represent them on the site. So and I think, as we've seen here so far today too, the more detailed that we can be in educating the user on what this is that they're looking at, what these options are, the better. And that can go from just the call to action itself. So some examples here, and I think you get kind of more specific as you go down, tour this home available to tour now, all the way down to take a self-guided tour today. What kind of tour is it? It's self-guided. I can do it today. There's action there. And I think being as deliberate and specific as possible can help to make that call to action something a lot more attractive and help to educate the user. I do like the example down here at the bottom where it's calling out the self-guided tour, but then it's also just giving those couple sentences to really help you understand what it is. You're going to get to do it on your own. There's not going to be any sales pressure. There's a lot to be attracted to when it comes to self-guided tours. In addition to the call to action, I think it's vital that there's some additional level of education to the home buyer of what this idea of self-guided tours are. You know, what is the process? How does it work? Are you really going to let me come into your home without seeing you in person? And what are the benefits to me and my family to come do it on our own hours? And there are a lot of benefits. So having a dedicated section on the website that helps to educate the user, I think is very important. And leads are awesome, right? That's what we're going to generate here. We're going to generate emotional connection. We're going to generate the traffic into the model home, and ultimately we've generated the leads. And they're great as long as you do something with them. And like with any other change that you make on the website, you want to think about how it falls into your sales process. What are you doing with the scheduled leads that are coming from Enter Now? Are you treating them different? Are they the same? Are they going into a bucket with your contact form leads from your website? Or are they different? Are they more qualified? Is the follow-up process different? More importantly, are they in your CRM? If you're using a CRM to manage all of your lead traffic, we need all of the leads from Enter Now to go into that CRM as well. So making sure that you've connected all those dots. Also, any changes we make on the website, especially when it comes to lead capture points, we need to make sure that we have proper Google conversion tracking in place. We want to make sure that we can go back, we can look at the data, we can see, hey, are people clicking on this button, and then are they ultimately registering? And also, can we see the source of where that traffic's coming from? What campaign that we did led to the most amount of scheduled tours on the website? All of that data is vitally important, and it's not that hard to just set it up so you have that data in the future. And lastly, the proof really is in the numbers. We worked with, these are some numbers shared with us from a builder that we recently worked with, where we helped them build and launch a new website. And previous to launching the website, they had been using Enter Now for their self-guided tours, but had been relying primarily on just home buyers that were driving through their communities and using the signs and doing kind of that on-demand tour. And we developed with them this really strategic integration for how we wanted to place these buttons on the site, how we wanted to create those calls to action and guide the user down that road of doing self-guided tours. And the numbers were amazing. So for the 4 months prior to launching the new site, they saw 179 tours. And then the 4 months after, that number jumped to 294 tours, which is an increase of 115 new prospects that actually walk through the front door of their models. And I still continue to get blown away by that number, just the idea that that increase of over 100 people now walking through the front doors of their model, creating that emotional connection, and ultimately creating a qualified lead. Right?
Awesome. Thanks, Corey. All right, everybody. If you've got questions, please put them in the Q&A box. We'll be looking there. While you're doing that, I just want to share a quick invitation with you. Coming up this fall in Raleigh on October 23rd and 24th, Blue Tangerine and Outhouse are going to be hosting the Home Builder Digital Marketing Summit. We'd love to have all of the marketers and OSCs that are on with us today to join us there for some great couple of days of training and networking, and we'll even try to have fun at the same time. But right now we're in the early bird mode just through the end of June. So if you registered before June 30th, you're going to save $400 off of the full price of registration, and you get all the details at buildermarketingsummit.com. So hope to see everybody there. And if you don't have a chance to do your questions today, here's the emails for everybody who's been on our presentation today. So you're welcome to reach out to them individually and make sure that you ask some questions there if you want to learn more about Enter Now or how to integrate on your website, things like that. But we've got several questions that have come in. And I've got a bunch of my own too. So hopefully everybody's got another, 75 minutes or so we can get through all these questions. I'm kidding, everybody. Everybody take a breath. We won't go that long. All right, but Barrett, first question for you really quick is, can you tell us just a little bit more about some of the analytics that are available for understanding what's happening with the tours and in the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So out of the box, we have reports for the visitors that come, the times that they visit, your most popular tour times. We even started keeping track of people that are trying to tour your homes after hours, just to give you a baseline analytics, like how many people are you missing post your tour hours. And so JP had a specific question. Enter Now tracks like when people are in the house and then when they leave. We don't share that publicly. We actually use that mostly for privacy sake, internally and for security and things like that, to make sure that everything's safe. These people are coming and going. But we've actually had a lot of requests recently to make that data more public. So we're trying to clean it up to present it in a more of a compliant manner because the person is sharing their geolocation and their time and all of that. So making sure that we keep all of that in mind. So we are building a feature right now actually to make that happen. So I know I've followed up with JP on that.
Awesome. So we've got a question about the sales process with these leads. And so I'd like to get thoughts from both Jennifer and Shelley, but Jennifer, why don't we start with you? When you talk about the follow-up, how is this the same or different with someone who's a self-tour lead versus someone who's a walk-in or someone who's a web lead? What kinds of things would you recommend the sales team does the same or differently with those leads?
Well, it's going to be very different. And I saw in the question, it also depends on your CRM that you're using and the platform that you're pulling the buyer into. So, when someone's going through traditional sales process and they're walking in, we're creating dialogue and conversation to further prod where they are in the buyer process. And when they're just kind of cold coming into a home, we don't necessarily have any more data from them outside of a registration card. And again, based on the builder, what are you asking even to get a little bit of more of an insight of who that buyer is just in that hopefully e-registration process or how it's coming into your CRM. So the answer to that, I don't have one quick answer because it's going to vary so much on the strength and size of your OSC team. And do you have an OSC team? And the strength and size of your sales team in that particular community. Like how busy are they that they can do more nurturing, or are they relying on more of the OSC teams to do that? So there's a lot of, there's not really a cut and dry way, except for to make sure you've got a communication path and make sure everybody understands their roles. Kind of going back to one of my points before, if you're going to say anybody that comes in through a self-tour that has not made an appointment or had a conversation with the salesperson, how is the OSC still trying to go back and make sure? I still would put it on the OSC. They haven't made an appointment. They don't have a relationship. They don't know the sales agent on site. I would still have them going through that process to get that appointment. And they may, like me at the car dealership, more willing to talk to Dave or Michelle about the car because I went on the lot and I found the car. So for me, if you have that OSC team and you've got that CRM, we're tracking the engagement, we're setting that appointment, we're still having them come in to go through that kind of that qualification process next with sales. But a lot of things will rally around what that right answer is for each builder. It's a little different. I don't always have the same answer for everybody. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. Shelley, how do you guys approach that issue? Is that an OSC responsibility or on-site, or where does that fall for you guys?
Yeah, great question. We actually do not have online sales consultants, so that's not part of our business model. Our sales team follows up with all leads directly that have come into the sales office and or crossed the threshold, which we consider these to have crossed the threshold. But I think, going back to Jennifer's slide about people are at different places in that buying process. When they come through your door, they may be the looky-loos. They may be, considering it, and they may be really ready to buy. I wouldn't say that, we see a lot more looky-loos than we do people coming in the sales office. But I would say, we also see a lot of realtors leveraging this tool as well. So, and as we know, anybody who is working with a realtor is generally seriously in the market to buy. So I think I would mimic what Jennifer said, in that we have to, still follow through on our process to qualify any prospects that come through and make sure that they are, really serious and in the market. But I don't know that we've seen any longer conversion time for those once we qualify them that are actually ready to buy. So.
And that was kind of the follow-up there is there a difference in these leads? You mentioned the number you got, but how long they take to work through the process? Are they faster, slower, the same? No, it sounds like no real difference there.
I think, yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't say that they are take longer to convert. Again, it depends on where they are in the process. And until this is like step one for them. So, they may not be quite there. I mean, we haven't seen that they've taken longer to convert necessarily. Again, I think that just depends on, where they are in their process.
Thank you.
If I could add on to that real quick, I think it's not shortening the process. It's not elongating the process. It's qualifying them in the process. Again, my sales team is golden once they get those really qualified leads. So I want to say if they walk in the model and they're like, nope, you do not offer the quality, value, or style that I'm looking for, we want to help them move on. And so that's just getting more of that qualification efficiency, in my opinion. It's great.
Thank you.
I can chime in with one. I saw a few builders that are leveraging heavy incentives this sales cycle right now during the summer. And they've started to include that in some of their text message campaigns to some of the home buyers going through their homes. These people are traditionally might be just showing up. They might have just found your brand and making sure that they're aware of the incentives that you might be offering as a competitive edge across, home building is definitely important to make sure they know that right away as soon as they're in the home. So whether it's a digital, whether it's a flyer in the home or something that they can see obviously, but through text message or email, definitely make sure that they're aware of the options and the incentives that are available to them. That's definitely a huge differentiator against resale. So,
well, Barrett, that's actually a great segue to another question. What are you seeing builders do within the homes for self tours that maybe they don't always do from like a staging standpoint or a messaging standpoint? You mentioned the idea of turning on the lights and turning on, maybe the music, or what other types of things are you seeing in some of these homes to help facilitate when there's no salesperson there, the tour?
Sure, absolutely. We briefly touched on it, but definitely with a model that has a full smart home package that we're integrated to through alarm.com as an example of one of our partners. Through our enter now process, we can turn on the lights, we can turn on the AC, we can actually trigger sound like through Sonos and other things like that. There is a way of creating sort of like that immersive or emotional experience through some of these sort of smart home-esque things. Definitely the builders that have sales kiosk, other interactive materials, things like that inside of the homes, especially even for some of the vacant properties that they have. If you can imagine on your own, just walking into a brand new home that you think you want to buy, but you're just on your own, being able to scan a digital brochure, making sure that, they can navigate through the home properly. I see a lot of that starting to really being put into different innovative concepts this year. So
great, thank you. And Jennifer, when you look at kind of your clients and the ones that have decided to do this, what kind of hesitations do you see from maybe sales teams or even maybe executives that kind of slow down the implementation process with self tours?
It's always one more thing. So, we implement, I feel like a lot of builders have technology fatigue. So they just think it's like one more thing we have to figure out how to implement and roll into the process. And the processes have really been evolving since COVID. But on the flip side of it, InterNow makes it so easy and they're so quick and seamless in their integration. So I will, raise my hand to that, to seeing a great experience. But again, it's going back and saying, what's the why? So really put it on the marketing and the IT team have to march on this and say, what's our why? What's our plan from implementation? And how can we roll this out successfully? It really has, if that starts, you can sell everybody on it. I don't hear a lot of hesitation from sales because they want to get as many people into those models and or specs, depending on how they use it, as much as possible, especially if they really believe in their product. I see more pushback technically from IT because it's one more thing they have to implement. And I think when they meet with Barrett and understand their process, it streamlines it. It's education up front that really makes implementation for anything successful in my experience.
Well, everybody, we are coming up on the hour. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for their participation, for the thoughts. Hopefully this has been valuable and insightful. If you do want to learn more about InterNow, you can get all the information at internow.com. Just make sure you spell it right, Barrett? And you can find it there. And if you'd like to learn more about helping generate a more sales generating website, then please visit us at bluetangerine.com. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us today. Have a great afternoon, and we look forward to crossing paths again in the future.
We're also sending out this recording after the webinar closes as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day.